Hey everybody, it's your pal Drew, and this is going to be a long one, so settle down with a cool beverage or a hot beverage or nothing at all, and enjoy. I hope you'll dig this because I put a lot of thought into it. I was going to do it about a month ago, and I had to rethink how I would approach the subject. In 1975, Origins of Marvel comics came out by Stan Lee. Well, collaborating with Kirby and Ditko and a little bit of everybody, John Romita, and there's been a lot of heat given towards Stan Lee because the books are all by Stan Lee, and he was kind of selfish about crediting himself and just say, well, I got me an artist to do this and this and this. And that kind of lasted through the 70s. But my only thing, the one thing I think, besides from his salesmanship about the books, he did have a genuine enthusiasm and wanted the Marvel Comics to do well. And if you look at it if you put it straight, he was the only constant in all these books over the 14 years that Marvel was around. I can see where the publishers would buy into that because he's a good writer. He's a great scripter. Sometimes he gets a little crazy with the alliteratives, but and sometimes, just like a lot of comics, they tell you what they're doing at the same time. But after researching some of the earlier Stan stuff, he was not as bad as people thought as far as telling everybody what they're looking at. It's interesting, but I grew up loving Stan Lee. I knew him. I didn't really know the old artists. I sort of just knew the newer ones, like Rich Buckler, and a little of everybody else. So this came out, and this is only first time ever, I think. Yeah, Marvel had been collected in a full-sized collection. There had been in the late '60s a bunch of paperbacks that reprinted, like a Fantastic Four and Avengers. And what they did was they kind of cut up the panels and shut up, you noisy figger. So anyway, they were a handful of books where they took like a Fantastic Four story or just a couple of like Spider-Man and Hulk, and they clipped them to fit the small paperback format. And but nothing was really done since then. Let me think what else. It's like, how do I even, if you haven't been born yet or you weren't around at this time, if you were like real little, it's so hard to get the impression across of that there was a time that comics were not collected in trade paperbacks, and especially not on a regular basis. And a lot of times there have been years that have passed between the Fireside books published by Simon & Schuster, New York, in association with Marvel, of course. What's interesting is I think of Joe Simon and I think of Joe Shuster. It's just a weird thing. What are the odds? Unfortunately, they weren't a part of that. Okay, I'm getting to this. I didn't have the money to buy this. I didn't have the, the kingly sum of. Where'd it go? Where did it go? I didn't have the kingly sum of. There we go. You figure. $6.95. I had other comics to buy. I had the weekly floppies to buy. So my cousin Sean bought this. Now, I know what you're gonna say. Enough with your cousin Sean, okay? We know he's there. He's around. You like comics. But my point is, and I will always point this out, is he was the only other fellow traveler comics reader that I knew. In the 70s, even in the 80s, comic books were not cool. They were, girls thought they were silly, childish of a guy to have one, and boys were kind of, it brought out the bully in them or the jagoff in them where they just bust your balls. But so it was a whole different thing. I mean, you kept that shit in the closet. In fact, when I was dating, like in 11th grade, and even beyond that, I hid my long boxes in my closet. I was literally a closeted comics reader. So this tome, Tome, great John Romita painted cover. Never get enough of those. He was such a genius. So he was over staying like a weekend over at my parents' house, and he had this, and there's a lot of the prologue, and Stan uses his what they call purple prose. And what's weird though? Okay, there's Fantastic Four, and this shocked the hell out of me and my cousin because we had never seen Fantastic Four 1, and it was just stunning. It's like the Thing looked like a pile of baby poop, and it's like that doesn't look like the Torch, although it says it's a Torch. And it was just really, really riveting. And I think to myself, now that I look at this, I think maybe I get some impression of what it possibly would be to have picked this off the shelf, brand new, unknown, because this was an all new book for me, even though it was 14 years old. Story, I guess, is what you say. Beautiful stuff. We all know the rest. And then what they did is it would complement the first issue with a later issue to show how the book had evolved. So issue 55, beautiful, beautiful stuff. And we had the Silver Surfer, always belly aching. The Thing is just, you see the Thing, he's pretty much the shape he'd been in all through, until John Byrne became the writer-artist in the early 80s. Love that foot action. It's like Kirby could come up with so many different things. It was just amazing. And, because Kirby was a fighter. He lived on the East Side and had a fight to get to school sometimes. There were gangs all around. And and here it is, cover gray. I wish I had committed to the bit though. The cover is gray. I know I say committed to the bit all the time, but I'll try and work on that. This is how the cover was. He was colored gray in the first issue because they were, unlike a lot of people who think, a woman lifted a car up with her bare hands because it was a child. That was legend created to sell the Hulk TV show in 77 or so. What actually happened was Aurora kits that you would put together and paint. They started doing the Universal Monsters, and Frankenstein was a massive runaway hit of all of them. And people had seen him in black and white movies, and he was gray. So the Hulk was sort of a gamma irradiated version of Frankenstein, because they even have the flat head, that kind of stuff in the hairstyle. Not a hairstyle, they corrected it though. And I don't know why. It's weird. You're just afraid of throwing people off. I love some of these panels where the figures are just like one color. It had so much depth. So great stuff. And we go to a few years later to a masterful issue of Submariner, and number is probably around 1968 or so. Trippy's turning in some amazing stuff. Just really, look at all that's going. And those bubbles and stuff, they are kind of actually easy to draw, but if you incorporate them so much, you have to be careful not to bury the information of the storyline. I got to speed up a little bit. Okay, Spider-Man. There's been a million people who claim to do Spider-Man because, success has many fathers, and failure is orphaned. All I'm going to say is Jack Kirby did not create anything having to do with Spider-Man at all. He just took over one of his failed comic strips called Night Flyer, who had the boots, he had the sidearm, he had the very much like his Sandman and Sandy, and the name Spider-Man just kept hopping around everywhere. So that was cool. See him in all black like that, and just real skinny. And then we go to the Shocker. Yeah, love that character. What's so brilliant about his John Romita Sr., he had kind of made it a quilt pattern on his costume because it absorbed his the shock waves that he would shoot out of his fists, and that was great, good stuff. Very, very good. Wait a second, excuse me a second. I gotta go back. If you'll pardon me, I think. Yeah, okay, John Buscema. For a while, I mean, John Romita was spread very thin. I mean, he was doing other stuff besides just Spider-Man. So a lot of times they would get, for about a year, they had John Buscema do the layouts, which is, the results are great. John Romita and Jim Mooney, what a team. What a team. And cross the rainbow bridge of God. I always gotta sing, sorry. Siggy, sorry. So, wee! There's the Stone Man from Saturn. That was just mind-blowing, because a lot of this stuff had not been reprinted since, I guess, the late 60s, when, you know, they had Marvel Collector's Item Classics, and they had annuals with a reprint backup, but this was all new to us. This was done in homage. Excuse me, Eric Larson did a homage to this on an issue of Thor that he did a 3-story arc in around 2000. Really cool. And that is Big Granddaddy Odin. Look at all that. And that's only like the outfit Kirby came up for that one panel. I should try and do a count of how many costumes he gave Odin, but I don't have a month. I'll show highlights so another time. So it's great stuff. It really, I mean, Kirby just really, he went from being pretty darn good, and then he went to be the master. Okay, now that's one thing I have to call bullshit on with Stan Lee. He kind of says he was thinking of Chandu the Mystic, this old radio show you listened to, but nope. In a letters page of another comic book that came out the same month this came out, Stan had a note saying that he says it's really different, and it's really, I think you'll really grab it. And I must admit, tis Steve's idea from the start, or something like that. You know, it was his brainchild. So he kind of, you know, I'm surprised it hadn't been pursued legally. But yeah, Ditko is not a suing type of guy, to my understanding. There's another origin, Dr. Strange. Then it jumps over to Murray Severn, who did the book for a while. Then Bill Everett did for a while, and then Dan Adkins. Like, it really went around. It was cool. It was all depending on the writer. Okay, so that came out. Pretty cool, okay? Totally digging it. Wow, this is great. Wow, this is the best thing ever. You know, it's like, I'm going to put this next to my regular comic books and just la 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 la. And I see in an ad, like some months later. Whoa, look at that. Damn, that's a beautiful painting. I would love to have that painting. I mean, the first one was great, but this one is just... Also, it has... I love secondary characters at least as much as I like main characters. So you got some... Hey, you got my man Iron Man front and center. Yes, indeedy. Feed the needy. So this came out, and I was in an Etna bookstore, not Ides Comics, because I think they moved away at that time. But up in Etna, there was a bookstore, a general bookstore. They also had a batch of comics, and they also had this. And I didn't have any money. My cousin Sean had it, so we took it to our Aunt Pidgey's, and we read it, and it just went... Well, it just blew our minds. It's like, wow, a second edition with these other characters? There's the X-Men. And that was cool, too, because... we're learning new things. Like the Beast actually talked like Ben Grimm for our first 3 issues. Then they finally made him like a, they gave him like a clever commentary on things, like Dick Cavett sort of commentary. Iron Man was friggin' gray. Holy cow! Look at it. He's like an enraged steam pipe or something, or water heater. So this is all wonderful. Oh, Don Heck's so great. I love me some Don Heck. And then it follows up years later. Got Gene Colan and Whiplash. Look at that. Glorious. I love the colors. The restrained colors. They're not flat colors, but they're not distracting from this. Okay, well, Iron Man's armor's kaput. It's kind of... These last few issues of Tales of Suspense were really kind of killing time before Iron Man got his own title. Then the coming of the Avengers. And this is all so mind-blowing to us. Because there was nothing like this. Nothing. Not all in one package like this. And certainly not one in standard comic book format. So, and for whatever reason, they didn't go into a later, maybe for space reasons, but Origin of Daredevil, which you will see early next year when Marvel does their 1964 omnibus. They've been doing 3 of them so far, 61, 62, 63. Looking forward to it. This was such a great story. I've gone over it many a time. And then later on, how about that? Look at that. It's got the photo reference, but it's still got movement to it, which is a real juggling. It's a real hard juggling act. I mean, people use photo reference, and it looks like photo reference like 90% of the time. I'm guilty of it too. But Gene somehow managed to do the images. I'd like to know where he got his reference for these things. Maybe in a magazine or something. But it almost feels like he was there with the troops taking pictures, even though he wasn't, he was older. So it's basically a blind man helping another blind man deal with the hardships. And plus he was black. That was one thing Stan was always great about. He and Jack and others introduced black characters in their comics, which DC really, really took a long time to get around to, a big time. And but because you had Gabe Jones and what's his name, Sergeant Fury, and then you had Robbie Robertson, who was the second in command at the Daily Bugle, and he had a lot to say. He would correct Jonah. He was just a wise guy, not a wise guy. He was a wise person to kind of calm down Jameson's more over the top narratives that he would just explode about. And there was Hobie Robinson, who was his son, became the Proud Little, and he just kept bringing out even background characters, which is really stunning. So you love or hate him, Stan could have gone the way of the old fuddy-duddies from the 60s at DC and say, oh, no, take that off, because we're not going to touch that yet. There's so many sensitive people about the race relations. Anyway, Nick Fury, Agent Shield. This is all new to us too. Look, he's all comfy, ready for bed. I love he has a cigar in his mouth. It's so funny. Everywhere he goes. And basically this is telling, and there's Anthony Stark. Well, it's really clever. Anthony Stark would show up in S.H.I.E.L.D. comics, but not as Iron Man. And he would always like that look, the Hydra. Take one hand off, you'll get like something else. He's like, I'm just a bare knuckle kind of guy, a brawler. They may be a curl, but I'm still 3-striped heart. So he finds some strange wire, throws it out, and boom! The very first appearance of the most unimaginable aircraft. And by rights, it shouldn't really take off, but it's comics and it's glorious. Okay. Oh, the Walcha. Oh, big deal. This whole thing here was a backup of Silver Surfer #1, and you know what it was? It was the same identical script to. Come on, get in there, everybody. Okay, there was a back in Tales of Suspense. They would have little. What do they call it? I keep saying it all the time. O. Henry type stories where, you get a twist at the end. Well, this entire script was done and in a 8-issue story, but I guess to keep people up to speed, they redid the story with Gene Colan as artist. So here we go. Sylvia Surfer. John Buscema must have loved these pages because he got to do a lot of backgrounds and flying and, the tech must have been paid, but some of the other stuff, because he's not very detailed. Well, okay, that's good. Loved it. We just were crazy. It was like Son of Origins. And we were just like, wow, that's too cool. And he had them both. I didn't really I got one of them later at like a flea market of all places. But we thought, okay, that's all they have to say on the matter. We are, and then, whoa, what is this? So I saw this advertised in the comics too, and I just couldn't believe it. John Romita, oh my gosh. Look at, he does ambient color, but in some spots where the light would go, but then he does double lighting over here. That's magnificent. Bring on the bad guy. So it's like, oh, wow. Now, I wasn't with Sean when I first saw this. What was it? Or maybe I did. Anyway, actually, it was a friend of mine that I only knew, like, I can't remember who showed it to me. It was like a friend of a friend. And I was just like, I wanted to steal it from him, but, you know, that's not right. But I actually contemplated it. That's how insane I was at the time. For comics. I was cuckoo for comics. And, Spider-Man and Daredevil and Cap would not approve of me stealing. So, it sounds stupid, but actually, when I was a little kid, I thought that. I thought, See, I'm a big dork from way back. Now, unfortunately, this does not have the cover for the annual that it reprints, which has a fantastic, elaborate background for Doctor Doom's origin, and the domain of the Dread Dormammu. Man, such visuals. It's just all this stuff's coming out of his head. He's not really, there's not a lot of stuff like this. It was very pop art, but he was not really into the pop art sort of scene at all. He was sort of like his own main influence, and stuff like that. Stepping out of a portal. Wow. That's really cool. And the mindless ones are always fun. Like punching each other and zapping each other with their eye beams. And then there's Loki. There we go. The Coming of Loki. Oh, Viper in the Mist. And then later on, no cover, unfortunately. Vengeance of the Thundergod, inked by Frankie Ray, a.k.a. Frankie Giacoia. A whole host of reasons. People were inking for both companies at times, and you had to use a nom de plume. So, let me do my Loki from the 1966 cartoon, okay? Hang in there. Behold, all wisest, still he defies thee, still he flaunts his love. Something like that. I like doing Loki's fun. Absorbing Man, incredible character. And then the Red Skull. The origin of the Red Skull. And his origin was amazing too. Now that's something I don't believe was ever. They never did show the origin in the original Simon and Kirby issues or any time in the 40s. So Frank Ray, i.e. Giacoia, is great. Now this one doesn't start with his first appearance. It goes to a pivotal appearance where Norman Osborn finally revealed as a Green Goblin, and like Esposito using the nom de plume, or what is the pen name, whatever you call it, pseudonym, as a Mickey DeMeo. And it kind of pays off like 40 issues into the book, and there's some rumor of maybe Ditko left because he said Green Goblin should be nobody. He didn't like the idea of anybody being in a cast that would end up being a supervillain. Like when he did a couple of villains in earlier issues, he did. Oh gosh, I can't think of his name. It was like the Crime Master or somebody else, and he got taken down by the cops, and he was against he was on top of a building next to, oh gosh, like a chimney, and they hid his features, and that's how he wanted it to be always, and that was cool. And he think he did another time, but it's like at this point he still wanted to make. He did not want the villains to be somewhat relatable. He wanted them to be, they're a-holes or you don't know anything about them. And it was kind of like, I even have to take stand side on this because it's like, okay, we've done that bit. We're not going to do it with every criminal up to like issue 250 or whatever. The Abomination, a favorite of mine. And his very first appearance and it's done by Gil Kane, Pencils and Inks. Really interesting stuff. Wow, such a different approach from Jack Kirby to Steve Ditko, back to Kirby, and then a ton of anchors over Kirby. And what's interesting about, I don't think if Kirby was on the issue that created the Abomination, I don't think he would look anything like this. But because I see so many nuances of design in Abomination, really great stuff. I'm tired. Give me some orange slices. There is some like there and there. Gil Kane semi-swiped Kirby. He had the same poses to get the feel of it, but he still had his own. You know, he put his own secret sauce on there. The Power and the Prize. Silver Surfer. No cover again. Oh, must I always protect you in spite of yourselves? Are you so steeped in evil that is all you see? I mean, that was cool for a while, but I'm surprised the book lasted 18 issues because I knew I was supposed to love it because it wasn't published anymore and he was a cool character. But then when I finally got all the issues originally, I thought, oh, he's a whiner. There's a lot of dead space. Because it was a double-sized book, and then you half of it could easily have been a single book because you just have him flying around and bemoaning his fate and la 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 la. Now, that is the last I saw any of the Fireside books in the wild. Next, I'd seen ads for them like this, but I couldn't find it anywhere. Wasn't any bookstore or comic store, and like I said, the first two Origins weren't even purchased at retail comic retailers. So all of a sudden, a few years goes by, and so I'm going to the bookstore at Monroeville Mall. It just had regular books, like I needed some for school. Damn it. I needed to bone up on some stuff. And so a lot of times, also, if I went with my parents, I just loiter around. And I saw in a discount bin, yes, a discount bin, I saw this, hang in there, everybody. This, and this in the bargain bin, marked down. So there was no audience for this, or at least no wide audience, because again, superheroes were just like the bastard child of entertainment. It's kind of, which is why so many of the TV shows, were really crappy on a shoestring budget. So what happened is I got these books for at $6.95. I got it for $2. And then, oh my God, when I saw this, I was just really, I wonder if the price had stayed the same. Well, I got mine pretty cheap. Where was I? I don't know. But it's still in great shape. And they're still affordable. That's the important thing, too. And I got this for all these, but for $1.99, and this one I got. Gosh, I love this. He looks like Heat Miser there a little bit, but Bob Larkin he's an amazing painter. That stupid thing on there. I mean, I know he was a national TV star, but it just takes away. So this one was a larger book with the Hulk because his TV show was out. So I was really impressed. I mean, it's like I was thrilled that I got these books on sale, but I didn't see the big picture because we didn't see the like of this very long. Let's see. Captain America covers, Kirby going into, into Steranko and Gene Colan. Spider-Man, Larkin, baby, Larkin. He's lurking, waiting for you. Okay, there's Stan Lee. He decided to skip Ditko this time, I guess. Stan Lee. Oh, no. John Romita. And more of the John Romita. And Jim Mooney, who added a lot to the book. And then They go into the Green Goblin storyline by Gil Kane, heavily drawn. I mean, there's no mistaking Gil Kane did this. And it was when Harry was on acid and other shit that really messed with his head. I mean, messed with his head. Kind of trivializing it, but I don't mean to. But Doctor Strange, look at that. And once again, I mean, check off the box where Drew says, we didn't have Photoshop back then, so the paintings were really mind-blowing. And, hey, I'll say it as much as I can, or when the call arrives. Okay, all did go. Great stuff. But then Barry Windsor Smith, or he was Barry Smith before he had the Windsor Smith. I just like saying that. Really, this is cool because he was really developing. I mean, Barry Smith started off horrible, but it's like each page he put down, he grew and grew and grew. So much great stuff. I'm not gonna spoil it for you. Oh, I never get back to these. Okay, Marvel Superhero Battles. That was great. I loved superheroes, and I love battles. So you start off with the Hulk versus the Thing, issue 25-26. So great. I mean, the inking is pure garbage, but it adds to this very crude storyline. And DC, for years, they could not figure out why Marvel was starting to pick up steam. They actually said it was the kids were into bad art. That's exactly how they felt. That's why they were so resistant to copying Marvel until Marvel became a big Wally Wood. Now I have the Marvel Masterworks of this, so the Zipatone, the Duotone is just really, really amazing. Such good stuff, and it's great because to think outside the box that the guy with no superpowers as far as physical fighting and stuff like that, he still has the strength of a normal guy. He's taking on Submariner, who can fight the Hulk. And the Blob. Hero was kind of annoying. I was like, why aren't they fighting another hero? But I love the story anyway. It didn't matter. So, that's beautiful. We got Loki there. So dramatic. So over the top in a good way. I mean, it was very new. I mean, he had started off with but I mean, he just got that role. I can't describe it. It's everything works so well. And unfortunately, his stuff got simpler as time went on because Stan wanted, for some reason, rumor has it that he hated this issue because it didn't look like a Marvel comic, and it really doesn't. I mean, back then especially. And also, he wanted Buscema to be more productive. He wanted to do like another series as well as this. And eventually, he was just Mr. Fill-In, and his brother Sal later on. And so when he said he got an earful from Stan about this issue, and it crushed him. It really upset him. It's like everybody makes really stupid, regretful mistakes. And, Stan was still talking about it years later, how he done messed up. Disaster. Well, this is a new angle. They give Iron Man a weak heart. That was always kind of weird. They really leaned into that shit. And then he's all beaten down, and then in comes Namor. And it crossed over from Tales of Suspense to Tales to Astonish. I'm going to get wired up, and I'm going to show that ass wipe what's what. Then the finale. No cover. Gene Colan did the first 3 pages, and then he got the flu. And then Kirby jumps in right away. Woo! Wow. I had shown this on a previous episode where Iron Man and Kirby got beef. Now, for a brief time in the mid-'70s, every comic the Marvel's coming out with of major characters, they had a sister comic that was a reprint comic. So briefly, Strange Tales came back. is Dormammu. If there be victory, if they're not, who cares? Okay, mission, crush the Kingpin. Here's another one. I thought, well, why don't they have them fight Quicksilver, the Torch or something? But they chose well. Because, I mean, as I got to reading it, it was just incredible and engaging. And how about that? Wow. Stunning stuff. So like I said, I got it for like $2. I was like, yeah, baby. And this was another book that I got. I don't even remember if I saw an ad for it. Maybe I did, but John Romita does. I tell you what, the layout is so great. It's like too many people would make like the hands like line up exactly, and then they would make the feet like exactly the same spot. But no, it's just a little bit off. I mean, because it would look too stodgy if they all were soldiers, Okay. So I got this for here we go. To Marvelous Marie Severin, illustrator, colorist, illustrator, cartoonist, and lovely lady. Truly one of the real-life superwomen in our merry, mixed-up Marvel universe. And that is the truth. Okay. Medusa. She started off as sort of a villain. Well, in Fantastic Four, she was sort of a villain. And then they found she was a good gal who was in a family called the Inhumans. And I don't know why she has a different costume. I mean, there is a reason, but I'm not 100% sure. Only because I didn't want to reread everything. It took me long enough to figure this out. But great action. And Red Sonja. At the time in the 70s, Marvel had licensing agreements with, I don't know, maybe is it also, hold on a second, Frank Thorne was the artist. It was created by Robert E. Howard, yeah. Good thing. Frank Thorne's art. Here's another thing. In the Marvel magazines, they allowed a lot of loose interpretations of comics. They had a lot of the Filipino artists just do some magic in black and white that didn't call for color. And Frank Thorne was one of those guys and Bruce Jones, man, I forgot that. I don't know if he just started there or what. And it's a great story, but it's just that, the rest of the line was very heavy in superheroes. But Frank Thorne, good Lord. But I mean, it wasn't house style, so it wasn't going to cut the mustard. It wasn't going to last long. And that's a shame, but, great character. We get the Invisible Woman. And they finally give her something to do besides turning invisible. She has a force field now. And it's showing that she's pulling her weight as far as power. And she really helps out in a lot of ways. And it's just a really great... It was a great way to introduce it, and it was a great way to it was kind of honest. It wasn't just contrived. It's like she's using these new powers, her imagination's going wild in the best possible way, and and then from there on in, she had force fields and did lots of different stuff with force fields. Ms. Marvel. I have the two Ms. Marvel Masterworks, and the first 2 issues are by Gary Conway and John Buscema. Similarly, John Buscema did the first 2 issues of Nova with Marv Wolfman. He was kind of like doing a little bit of the Roy Thomas Gil Kane, introduce the first issue with a bang and then have somebody else fill it in. But this is really great. I'm reading this actually. Jim Mooney took over the 3rd issue, and it looks great. He's sit out thinking it, and it's a smooth transition. It's amazing. And Chris Claremont took over, and this was when he began to get a reputation of learning how to write women different than men. And she's kind of like busting Jameson's balls because his magazine called Woman, he wanted to hire her because she had written some articles that were in bigger, huge magazines. So this would be like a subsidiary of Daily Bugle, whatever. And then they argue. It's so great because she doesn't she just doesn't swallow the first thing that's offered to her. Jameson says 20,000, 30, 22, 30, 25, 30. Blasted, how can I argue with a woman? He was just kind of, he was a little, Jameson had some good points and bad points, but he was pretty entertaining. Oh, man. Ooh, Scorpion. Fan favorite. One of my favorites. Really, really nice stuff. I'm going a little too slow on this. I hope you guys don't mind hanging in there. Oh, and then Touch of a Goddess. And they'll cover, though, but it is Hela, or Hela, as they call her in the movies. And it has to deal with her wanting to take Thor's life. I don't remember the whole story. She disguised herself as a Contessa. It's a little obvious if you're in the streets in the States, but it didn't matter. Oh, see, and she was getting people aid. She was like really trying to extort. I love that. I so love in the movie they kept her helmet. Oh my God, that helmet is awesome. And you know what? Kate Blanchett as Hela, hell of a gal. Hell of a Hela. Really great. Really great. Fit the bill perfectly. Had the right attitude. Claws of the Cat. This was very short-lived. This lasted maybe 3 or 4 issues. And Marvel was getting female writers. And then like Linda Fight, who was Herb Trippy's wife at the time. She just used her maiden name. And Wally Wood inked Marie Severin. Beautiful, beautiful combination. Float like a butterfly, sting like a wasp. So it's the origin of Wasp. Which actually helped a lot in the Ant-Man serial, but it was kind of like a neglected... Giant Man never got a break. Fury of the Femizons. Black and white. This actually came from one of their black and white magazines. And if it looks a little dark, it's because it was magazine size truncated down to comic book size. But the faces, just amazing stuff. I didn't know that existed. Love that. And Shannon the She-Devil, another book that didn't last as well. It's like Marvel was getting so entrenched in the superheroes that, and also they were expanding a lot of titles, that it made it tough to sell something new like this. And the women's lib movement was pretty new still. I mean, it was still pretty new, and it was still in progress. Black Widow. I'd read this, I think, in a Marvel's Tales or something. Maybe I'm wrong. She has a little costume, but she has red hair all of a sudden. I don't know. But, wow. A sleek costume that Romita said he pulled from the Avengers, Emma Peel, her costume. And that's it. I'm going to wait too long about that. 43 is it, and I'm not getting to the final part. Well, this isn't the final part. This was great. And I paid $3 for this, but it's magazine size pretty much. And I bought this, got like, oh wow, still like maybe $1 more, and it's huge. Had a lot of great stuff. I'm going to try and zip through this faster. Man in Outer Space. And Dick Ayers was so bizarre, but his Hulk was so glorious. It just worked. Oh, now here we go into Fantastic Four 12, and they stopped showing the covers again, which is a drag. And the funny thing is, the Hulk doesn't even really show up till like page 18 or 19. Cute little rocket sled there. But yeah, I mean, it really isn't towards the end of the book that they really get the contact. Then you got the issue 3 of the Avengers. And then what's great is they reprinted a succession of 10-pagers that Ditko had done for the Hulk on Tales to Astonish. He appeared with Giant Man in the last issue, and then he replaced... Oh, was it? He became a co-feature. And what's interesting is, when you think about it, he was still doing... Ditko was still doing Spider-Man. He was doing half a book of Hulk, half a book of Doctor Strange. For quite a while, he did 2 books a month. And there was no faltering in the stories or talent or whatever. And sometime I'll have to go over this again because there's like a ton of different inkers. Some great, some woof, horrible. It bleeds into, I think this might have been when Ditko left. Almost there. Where strides the behemoth? I like that phrase. And it goes into Kirby. That's when Ditko left. And then came Kirby. If you've ever seen the cartoon version of this that was on in 1966, it's real creepy in a cool way. It's like you don't even want your parents to watch this because it's so violent and yelling and screaming. But it was good stuff. And then, yeah, that's it. Oh, the Boomerang and the Brute, and this was Gil Kane again. And to be honest, I hated that face. I just thought he looked like a baby. And but I dig it now. I've seen the way. Well, what happened? What went wrong? What's going on? They just stopped making them, and when they did stop making them, they couldn't fill the shelves anymore. They had to discount everything. Well, here's the deal. Despite the Hulk being a TV show sensation, and Spider-Man was supposed to be a TV sensation, but to my understanding, there were only 2 TV movies that came out of it. And it was 2 crappy Captain America ones that were low budget, but fun in a weird way. It's this is 1982. Fireside Books, I guess, finished their contract with Marvel. Oh, I forgot there was a Fantastic Four. That is not an insult. I love Fantastic Four. There was a Fantastic Four version of this that came out too. But I think I forgot. I forgot to buy it. I had it years ago. I'm getting it in the mail sometime soon. So Marvel published their own version of it after Fireside, did theirs, and it's okay. I mean, like, here's the thing: if you're a young man and you're buying this, and you see someone that you're attracted to, and they see you looking at this. You might think, this guy's a baby. He's a child. He reads comic books. He must be stupid. Which is, it's actually the opposite. I screwed around a lot in school, was lousy, but English, I always got A's because I was reading all this stuff and I was taking it in, and I understood a lot of just how prepositional phrases were used, and so. What's weird is they reprinted again the Thor versus Silver Surfer image or story, and it had Red Sonja while they could have it before they lost the license or was let go or whatever. Everyone's this one's a little, the binding is kind of thicker. Yep, there you go again, same story, and I guess because you wanted it. In hindsight, he loves the book, so if he's going to publish something that's owned by Marvel solely, then, why not show that? And Iron Man and Captain America. Fun stuff. There we go. Recent stuff. Came out like a year before, I think. It was Spider-Man and Red Sonja by the legendary team of Chris Claremont and John Byrne, inked by the legendary Terry Austin, legendary Tom Warzikowski, living legend Glynis Wynn, Alan Milgram, Roy Thomas, consultant, which is smart, Jim Shooter, editor-in-chief. Wonderful stuff. It's like Byrne stuff just got better and better. He was so inventive. And there she is with her chainmail bikini. And X-Men versus the Avengers. And this is another story that they don't really fight for long. It's kind of a short fight. But you know what? It's okay because you're still engrossed in the story so much that you kind of forget it. But I've reread it a billion times. Well, it jumps ahead to something that's still pretty recent. It's a Marvel feature, which it was like 2 books that came out right before the story graduated to Marvel 2-in-1, with the Thing being the sole, sole star that had a guest star every issue, and Jim Starlin, Joe Sinnott, heaven happened to Murgatroyd? So, oh, then we got Daredevil. Back. I keep saying I'm going to rush things, but I don't. Maybe it doesn't need to be rushed. Duel with Daredevil. This was in Spider-Man 16. Beautiful. Daredevil had just come out, and Marvel was so good about sneaking in a new character just to establish him, because, you know, if he's segregated from the rest of the Marvel Universe, then it doesn't seem to be important. And you know what? This was all that Marvel had for years. They didn't do a second one of these. They didn't know what they were. You know what they were doing? They did a lot of reprints that were on Baxter paper. Now, Baxter paper, for geezers like me, and maybe you youngins need to know, is it was a special format that usually sold only at comic shops. They were big on reprints. Like they did a 3-issue double-sized reprint story. It covers the Neil Adams, Roy Thomas era of the X-Men. And then they had one issue where they reprinted Fantastic Four 1 by John Byrne did the wraparound cover, but the interiors were Lee and Kirby. And they just kept pumping these out, and that was how the reprints were coming out. I guess they figured the weight of the book, all that was maybe not cost effective. Also, there was really not a market for this at the time. Like I said, it was a boys' club. It was, it was wish fulfillment. It was, it was just a lot of guys who were still into it, and they didn't really I'll explain. But it just wasn't any demand for it, and you were still ostracized if you read comics. Good Lord. I mean, some people can know an ancillary bit about it. If you're a comic reader, you are I got called the detrimental word for homosexual billions of times in junior high school. I didn't want to add to it by telling them I read comics. So it was tough then to be a comics fan. Comics really did not become part of the culture here anyway. Japan had it for many years because they just, how can I put it? It was only till, I think part of it was, the value of comics started going up, and then they had the speculator boom, which was really ridiculous. It just got really overblown and really they went crazy with variants and stuff like that. Boy, times sure have changed, haven't they? So there really wasn't. Everything was done in a fancier format, but they'd be single issues or double issues. But some stories, we didn't have trade paperbacks for everything like we do now. For a short time, the second half of the 80s, they started reprinting popular but recent stories. Now this one is Fantastic Four versus the X-Men. At the time, X-Men was everywhere. Oh, I hated it. I skipped, whole mini-series. I even dipped out of the main series. I quit with issue 200. It was kind of spinning in circles, in my opinion. And this was $9.95. Came out like 87. All new. John Bogdanove, John Romita cover. Wow, what a combo! And this came out in 87, like a year afterwards. It must have sold like crazy. It's really good. John Bogdanove. He's inked by Terry Austin, which is great, always great. But he can do expressions and emotions like nothing else. And Sue's doing some stuff around the house. She's a mom. She kicks ass as a crime fighter, but she's also a mom. And she goes through these boxes and finds an old grandmother's silver tea service, and just little stuff. Stuff that humans do, except they don't talk about it for 5 pages or whatever. They just keep this, but it's touches that really kick into gear. There's a She-Hulk hanging around, and I'm not going to tell you the story. It's pretty wild, but something nasty forces a confrontation, but it's really good. Also at this time, they had the 6-issue run of Marvel 2-in-1 with The Thing, which covered the Project Pegasus Saga, which was done by John Byrne and George Perez, written by Ralph Macchio and Mark Gruenwald, and it had been reprinted around this time, and it's been reprinted like twice since, like in hardcover, and it was that popular. I mean, yeah, half of it was Perez and half of it was John Byrne. I mean, there's nothing to not like. And about the same time, Hercules by one of my favorite creators, Bob Layton, who I got to know on a personal basis, a few years back, and I'm in hog heaven. I love him. He's a good guy. See him at shows. We bullshit a little bit. I love the logo. He improved the costume, and he did the impossible. He made Hercules interesting. He was always a dullard to me, but Bob took the last, it was that last issue of Avengers before Yellow Jacket came along and everything went to shit. But Hercules saw Wonder Man. He was talking and he says, yeah, I'm kind of in a, rate of Thor. And he's like, so have at thee. And he punches Wonder Man through the room. He says, you're crazy. What are you doing? And so Bob decided to go with that. Like, he called it the gift. I must give you the gift. Which means a gift of a great battle. Really great stuff. Okay. Really, really good. Galactus. I ain't going to spoil it. And they were still pretty affordable at the time. Here was a 4-issue story that a brand new scribe named of Peter David and longtime artist Rich Buckler did. The Death of Jean DeWolf. Now, she was a character introduced in Marvel Team Up number 48, and what was cool about her is she was like a throwback. She had a beret, she dressed proper, and she drove an old roadster. She was kind of like a gun mall looking person. That was her, that was her look. There we go. That's exactly, yeah, and like the skirt's different than what was Big Present. What is it, $6? That's good. And what also, you'll find that there are, and there's her first appearance right there, and it basically, I was really bummed that they killed her off, but it was done in a really good way, and Rich Buckler was doing this hyper-realism for him comic. He wasn't doing his big broad stuff or his what do you call it, Neil Adams stuff either. It was just very grounded, and it worked for the storyline. Really good stuff. And this, I was living in Virginia, and I was pretty tight on money. I actually worked in advertising, and I would wash dishes on the weekend just to make some money. Well, this came out, and I'm like, well, it's more than a comic cost, but it was, gee whiz, a kingly sum of $12.95, but I'm just like, you know what? I totally love this storyline, and this Perez cover was brand new, done extensively. Done specifically for the trade paperback, and it's the last one. So yeah, and it came out in 1990. So I bought it because I knew I was going to reread it. Is there a cover? Oh no, the covers are at the end, which I'm glad they do have the covers, but. Yeah, this one started off with Perez doing like first 4 or 5 issues, and then I think he went over to Fantastic Four for a while. They were kind of tossing him back and forth at the Marvel bullpen, and there's Ms. Marvel showing up. Perez showing his great way of having different sizes and different images or poses, I guess the way I'm looking for. So Pablo Marcos is inking this. I love Pablo's stuff. And all of a sudden we go into, this is poorly reprinted though. Sal Buscema and Klaus Janson came in for this issue. And then it was Sal Buscema and a whole diverse hands, D hands, which means anybody who was around there with a pulse, the collector. And David Wenzel came along. And I wasn't keen on him, but he was better than a lot of the newbies, so it kept me engrossed. Really amazing stuff. I really recommend. You probably know all about this anyway. And there was a prologue in this book drawn by my pal Tom Morgan, and it's been since retconned away. So it's funny how seeing some of these books, you remember the time of the year, like the seasons. You know, like you would go to, like I would go out like in the winter, sloshing to get certain comics. I think this was one of them, and it's just a funny thing. You remember where I bought it, and sloshing around and getting my shoes all wet and feet all froze. Well, and then there was between in the 90s, DC was doing a great job reprinting a lot of stuff, and Marvel was just behind the 8 ball. They did create Marvel Masterworks. I want to zoom in on this beautiful Mike Waringo cover. Zoom, 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 baby. There we go. There we are. Yay. Come on. Well, DC was doing really good stuff with their trade paperbacks, reprinting different stories, but Marvel they had 27 original books called the Marvel Masterworks, which were great, and then they just stopped. I guess they were no longer economically feasible, and people weren't really buying them because all this new, like the Image creative type guys were, their stuff was selling big time. But DC, so they dropped that, and they didn't bring it back to like 2000 or so. I think it was Tom Brevoort who might have spearheaded that. I'm not sure, but the early Masterworks were recolored with like airbrush colors, and it looked like shit. So I sold those off, and then got like the omnibus. So here's the other thing you'll notice. I know this is over a period of years, but there were a couple of these books between. I just don't have them all. There's no common trade dress with them. They're just odd. And once they decided to put Marvel across the top on every book, that let people know that if people are looking through a bunch of comics and see Marvel on the side, they're a Marvel fan. Let's check it out. And also, they would do original covers just like the ones I'd shown you. But the problem is, I love original covers, but there's so much stuff out there now that they have to reprint one of the covers from a mini-series or a period of time where that covered, excuse me, let me start over. I said that all wrong. Back then, it was cool, but later on, if you had a story that you loved, but it was an issue of Captain America in a mini-series, you might not know where to find it, but if you use a cover from one of those issues in a mini-series, then right away, the person who wants to trade paperback, oh, there it is, okay, But, so at first I didn't like it, but now I totally understand the marketing behind it, because there's so many, especially now, geez, last 20 years have been rebooting every friggin' comic out there, every character, and there was one time where the longest selling title was issue 42 of Venom, and everything else was starting off with number ones over and over again. So there's been a ton of relaunches of number ones for cash grab, and then, but if there's one you like, then you'll know which one it is. So I'm blathering, I know. Let's see. This I actually really enjoyed. I've replaced all the stuff that's in here, but it's got the Wondrous World of Doctor Strange, but again, it's kind of like a little too, it's not, the colors are not true. And, okay, Karma, Chameleon, come and go. Yeah, you got some Frank Miller. I love that effect. Who inked this thing? I think it might have been Bob Wyachek, yeah. I think he passed recently. Okay, enter Spider-Man from one of the early. This is actually what got John Romita the Spider-Man gig. He was doing Daredevil, and they saw this issue come out, and they were like, "Well, you're going to go now. You go to the big leagues." Now we got Eric Larson's. He took over Amazing Spider-Man with David Michelinie, And then Todd McFarlane created his own Spider-Man book, and then he promptly left, like after 14 or 15. And Eric Larson took over doing all the chores except coloring. And you know what? I like it. That's kind of weird, though. You know, it's just weird. It looks like she has something dressed underneath. You know, it doesn't actually look like flesh. It just looks like what do you call it? Texture of some kind of I don't know, corduroy or something. But I did have fun reading his stuff. You know, you can hog a page with a big face and stuff like it. And like, again, it's like the storytelling is, you know what's going on. It's just goofy. I mean, or not. Goofy's not right. It's exciting. It's sensational. But I probably wouldn't hire him to do like a detective comic. And I don't even mean Batman. Like just to do a. That's a nice one where they have a little palaver. Yeehaw! There's a money page. And what's neat is this guy really looks a lot like a Frank Miller character. That's what it puts me in mind of. I'm trying to think where the character would be. Oh, like from Dark Knight Returns and Ronin and stuff like that. So then we go to one of the best Spider-Man annuals of the recent age. Klaus Janson, okay, backing up the Team Supreme. Just so much good stuff going on here. Punisher tries to take out Doc Ock. No luck. Oh, hey, why don't we get spiders? So they sent him on initiation to go get the Hulk. I was like, couldn't you work me up to this? Could you have me fight like, I don't know, Crimson Dynamo or, you know, or the Cobra? What? There's Hulk, he's all stumpy. Back then, there was some inconsistencies with his body when it wasn't done by Lear. I mean, if it was done by Ditko or Kirby. So it was tricky to do. How about this for a wonderful gallery? It pisses me off. You know why? Is it going to kill you to put 3 more pages in there with full-size covers? I don't want trading card-size covers. You dipshits. Oh, another book that came out that had reprinted was the Hobgoblin. It was like early issues of Amazing Spider-Man that was reprinted in one book that was specifically devoted to the origin of the Hobgoblin and some of his earliest appearances with Spider-Man. But it wasn't until like 2000 and Joe Quesada and then other people thought, hey, we have this treasure trove of stuff that needs reprinting. They tried to go back to doing Marvel Tales and like a monthly reprint comic that was the size of a regular comic, but it was something Marvel Select. And they would reprint Spider-Man's Spider-Man in the Savage Land with Gore the Monster and all that stuff, and they also reprinted but they never got past like 4 issues, even though they offered a subscriber service in one of their pages. And just that people just didn't want reprints that were floppy. It's like, by gum, they have to be square bound. They have to be books that put on the shelf. So, and despite new covers too, like Waringo did some, and I can't remember who did the FF ones. Well, that's it. So now we, you know, I hope I've helped. I had fun looking through all this stuff, rediscovering stuff myself. But well, anyway, 1 second. And while I'm on the subject of trade paperbacks, you should check out on Amazon. I got all kinds of trade paperbacks from Marvel and DC, and check them out. I also got 3 novels I wrote. Lots of cool stuff. I've got a lot of books on Amazon that I've worked with, and that's it. So best to all of you.